Dashboarding has been around for many years. As you can see here on this picture, dashboarding is nothing more than just visualizing information in a compact way. Welcome to my webinar on DataZen. I'm Nico Verbanen. I'm a BI architect with Kohera. I'll be talking to you about DataZen. Let's first start with a small introduction to DataZen. Then I'll show you how you can create a dashboard with DataZen. And at the end I will give you a peek on what will be the future of DataZen. So what is DataZen? DataZen is actually a dashboarding software that was acquired by Microsoft in April of this year. And if you look at DataZen, we can see that there are three main parts, three main components that make up the DataZen software. First, we have the design application where we will be creating our dashboards. We have a control panel website where you can do all administration on the DataZen software. And of course, you also have a front end available where you have three different types of front end. You have the web front end, which is an HTML5 front end, which makes it possible to visualize your information in an interactive way in all different web browsers. For Windows 8 and 10 we have a Windows app, and for the mobile platform we have different mobile applications. Designing the application is done in the DataZen Designer. As you can see here, it's a very intuitive way of creating your dashboards. So business users can also create these dashboards. The only thing you have to do is size your dashboard, click and drag the different components that you want to use, and next is attach the data to these different components. Once a dashboard is created, you can render it, you can visualize it on all these different platforms and also different form factors without any loss of information. Also key is that from one dashboard you can have a drill through to the different other dashboards. As said before, for the mobile platform, DataZen supports currently the three main mobile devices, being Windows, iOS for Apple, and the Android platform. Administration can be done through the control panel website, where you can actually set connectivity, so where you can connect to your data sources, cloud or local. And also you can set up caching at the server side to boost the performance of your dashboards, or client side, where you can actually then start using these dashboards also offline. Security is also being set in the control panel. In security, you can choose between the Active Directory integration security, so that the users can log on with their Windows users, or you can set up their own DataZen security system where you will be maintaining users and passwords. Permissions are set at a very granular level. You can secure all your communication between your data sources and between the DataZen backend and frontends through SSL encryption. And also the data can be encrypted. So I've talked before about the caching. You have server-side caching. Well, the data that's being stored at the server level is also being encrypted. You have client-side caching. Also the information sitting on your client, on your mobile devices for instance, can also be cached. Also for the mobile devices you can have a pin lock screen put on top of the DataZen application. Okay, that's enough talking about DataZen. Let me show you the DataZen product. Before we go into the designer and design a new dashboard, let's first have a look at the control panel. This control panel is a website application where you are going to administer your DataZen server. One of the things that I'm going to show you is actually creation of the data sources. So here you have your data sources. Here is a data source folder. Within that folder we've made a connection to our SQL Server environment. If I open that connection, we are able to create new data source views. So these data views are actually the source data that we will be using within our dashboard. So let me create a new data view. Let's call it demo. Next, we choose the refresh frequency. You can choose to have real time, which means that he's not going to cache any information on the server. In our specific case, I'm going to choose for a daily refresh. It's going to be every day at, let's say, 2 AM. Okay, I'm going to allow client data caching. I'm not going to personalize my queries for each member, which means that I'm not going to make the dashboard user dependent. So next, I'm going to write a query to fetch the data from my system. As you can see, there's no clicking and dragging here. You really have to know your queries. This specific query is a view on my system, so you really have to know, you really have to be, let's say, a very advanced user or an IT person to set this part of the DataZen application. Next, we're going to have an overview of all the different columns. These are the column names that are coming from my query. I can rename them, so I can give them another display name. I can change a data type, and I also can say if they are included in the result set of this query. So I'm going to leave it as is. Next, I will be showing an example of the first 20 records that I'm retrieving from the specific data view. When I click finish, it's going to save first the data view with the query, but as you can see here, he already did a refresh of the information. So now currently there is a data set, or the data set is actually stored in the DataZen server. So I can force an update, which is now executing. So now it's actually getting the information from my source and storing it on the server locally. Next part is going to my Windows environment. Let's open our DataZen publisher. It's going to ask me to connect. I'm just going to cancel because I already have a connection here, you see, to my environment. So no dashboards are available since I'm working from a blank environment. So first I need to create a new dashboard. I'm going to start from an empty dashboard because I have no existing dashboards. Once this is done, we actually see our DataZen designer. There we see actually on the left top, we see the three major parts that we are going to be working with. We have a layout view, data view, and a dashboard settings. First, let's start with the dashboard settings. Let me give a name to my dashboard. I'm going to call it demo. Dashboard culture, which will determine my currencies. I will be putting to Dutch Netherlands. We are starting on the 1st of January and my weeks are starting on Monday. I'm also going to provide an effective date because my demo dataset only has data up until 2013. So for some of the features, this is important that I really set my effective date to 2013. I'm also going to enable client caching and encrypt the data stored on the client if that would be the case. Next is the server settings. These are actually the settings where we will be publishing the dashboard once we have finished creating it. These are all fine. So let's go back to our layout design, and the first thing I'm going to do is actually save a local copy. Okay. Next, I'm going to resize my screen so I have the maximum capacity for creating a dashboard. Once that's done, I'm going to add all the different components, starting with first the time navigator. Once the time navigator is on top, I'm going to select the information that I want to see, or at least what I want to filter on. Here, I'm not going to get the last quarter, but I'm going to get last year, this year, and the last 6 months. Okay. Visualization types are bars, lines, areas, or step area. I prefer to use a bar, but of course that's for everyone different. The other things, I'm going to use the abbreviated default currency so that you will be getting the M, for instance, and the figures that we are seeing here now is 2.28 million. Next that we're going to add is indicator data grid. I'm going to position this here. I'm going to remove the title, have auto numbering, also going to aggregate this by time. Okay. Next, I'm going to add some couches. This couch will be the product cost. We'll have a default currency value. Then I'm going to add the delta number. This will contain order quantity. Order quantity, of course, won't have currency information, so we're going to put it to general. Also the delta label, I'm going to choose to have the value and percentage from the target. Next is a delta indicator. I'm just showing the different possibilities you have here. This will be about sales. And here we're going to show you actually the percentage from the target. Then we have another delta indicator, which is also about sales. So default currency, and here we're going to show you the value and the percentage from target. Visualization type, we could choose to have default or full background. I'm going to choose the default, and the higher the value, the better it will be. Last, I'm going to reuse an existing. I'm going to choose to have it called average unit price. And those are my couches. So I'm now still going to add two charts, one comparison time chart. I'm going to put here. And next will be a bubble map. I'm going to put here. The comparison time chart is also going to be about sales. We are going to adjust the Y range to values so that it's not starting always at 0, but can start at any given figure. Also going to change this one. This one's going to be a line versus bar. Going to have an abbreviated default currency, data structures by column. Okay, this is all good. And then the bubble sales is also sales by region. and on the map we're not going to have contents, but we're going to have countries. Okay, so now what we did was actually create our dashboard. Save that again. We just created our dashboard without any information added, without any of our data added, but we also already have a nice overview of how such a dashboard could look, what information could be on the dashboard based on the information that's sitting behind this now. But what actually is sitting behind this? To see that, we have to go to the data view. On a data view, we're going to see that he created some simulation tables. Of course, these are not the tables that we are going to use, because we are going to add our own data, and adding data gives you the possibility to connect to the DataZen server or have a look at the local Excels. Of course, we're going to have a DataZen server connecting to the AdventureWorks, and there having our demo data view, which we are going to import. Now it's actually fetching the data from the server and putting it locally on my machine. One of the properties I still have to change is how the dates are being set within the table. Default, the date time filter column is automatically chosen. In this case it wouldn't be a problem because we only have one date field, but in many occasions we have multiple dates sitting in one table, and then having it automatically choose is not always the best idea. Next that we can choose is actually at what aggregation level we can set it and what granularity we want to give to the time dimension. This is now still set to auto. If I choose months, all information won't go below the month. For our demo, we can leave it to auto. Apply this. So the thing that we have to do now is actually attach the data, let's say, to the different components that we chose. How do we do that? Very easy. We go component by component and select the correct table and the correct values. So here we choose our demo table, and this won't be about order quantity but sales amount. Okay, if you look at options, it's going to summarize everything together. Okay, that's perfect. So we set up our first component. Next component will be a bit more difficult, which is the indicator data grid. Going to choose our demo table. Looking at the options, we see that will be filtered with our time navigator. That's all fine. Here we see that all these different fields are selected. This is of course not what we want. We want to have the sales amount, the order, not the quantity but the order date, sales amount comparison, and all the other fields can be deselected. Because I want to work with a delta, I can add a gauge column. In the properties or the options of the gauge column, I can choose the gauge type, have a delta error, delta indicator, delta background. This is what I'm going to choose now. In which fields that I'm going to compare is a sales amount and the sales amount comparison, and the direction is higher is good. Okay, I click done, rename the field to delta, and once that's done, let me move it up so that will become available at the beginning. Next to changing the name of a newly added column, we can also change the names of existing columns. So let me change the date, order date field name to date, and also change the option of visualization, setting it to month year visualization. Okay. Options. I'm going to set the aggregation function of the two columns I'm using to sum. So it's actually summarizing all the information at the higher levels. Okay, this is the second component. That's finished. Let's go to the third one, which is the product cost, the total product cost. Also again checking if it will be filtered by our time navigator and that the aggregation is sum. Our order quantity, demo, order quantity, demo, order quantity comparison. Again, it will be filtered. Okay, and okay. Next is the sales. Again, the demo table, and of course the fields now are sales amount and sales amount comparison. Checking if filtering is and aggregation is set correctly. Okay, moving on again to our demo table with the sales amount and sales comparison amount, and checking of course our filtering and aggregation functions. This will lead us to our last couch, which is about the average unit price. So we are going to choose a unit price as a measure, but instead of having it aggregate as sum, we're going to aggregate it as an average. So it's actually going to take the average of all unit prices of that current selection. Let's click done. Then we have our sales graph. Also here we're going to use the demo environment and the demo table. We're not going to use the order quantity but the sales amount, and the comparison value will be sales amount comparison. Again, also checking here filtering and aggregation, which is also set fine. This will take us to our last component, also putting that to our demo table. Here the key field will be our English country region name, and what we will be showing is actually the sales amount. Checking the options, checking the filtering, and also checking the aggregation. Okay, so now we set up a complete dashboard, chose all the different components, and later on added data to those different components. So let me first save again a copy locally. Once he has finished saving everything, we can actually run a preview of the created dashboard. This is now the dashboard that we, in the last few minutes, created together. So here we have our time navigator with all the different information. If I start clicking in my time navigation, you will see that all the other components are automatically updating. So here we see our date year, month year combination on the date field, and the delta between my sales and my sales comparison amounts. Also here we see that the graph now has changed to a month graph. If I'm just selecting quarter, it's going to change in quarter. I can easily extend my selection with the third and the fourth quarter or my complete year. Also, these will give you an overview of information, but next to only giving you information, they are also here so you can easily create some kind of selections. So if I'm clicking this here, then you're seeing that he's actually taking all the information only this year, because my effective current year I've set to 2013. If I make changes to the width of the time, you see that it's not going to take quarters anymore, but it's now actually visualizing the information as months. And he also has updated all the information here. hovering over specific components will actually show me more detailed information. Creating this dashboard actually only took a few minutes. Now we want to put it available for other users. How we do that? Simply by publishing this to the server. This is the information that we set up earlier. Let me just click publish, and now it's actually putting the dashboard on your server. So let me open my DataZen viewer. Here we see that our newly created dashboard is available, and if we open it, you will see the exact same view as we saw before in the preview. Also concerning functionalities, we have the same functionalities. So we click on the time, we can drag, filter, use these functionalities. They are all available to us. If we now go to our website, here this is actually the web HTML5 interface. Also here we have our newly published dashboard. Once the dashboard is open, you'll have the same view with the same functionalities. Here you can click on specific components and they will show you then the additional information. So that concludes our demo. Next topic was about the future. Well, when Microsoft acquires a product or another company, it's always very difficult to predict what they are going to do with the product in the future. So it was also one of the biggest questions until now. What is Microsoft going to do with DataZen? Because they also have Power BI and all these other components. But with the release of SQL Server 2016, Microsoft is going to integrate DataZen into the SQL Server Reporting Services. They are going to probably keep the existing design application, because that's one of the biggest key advantages of the DataZen application, and the publishing won't be done anymore into the DataZen server, but they will be done in the reporting server portal, so that published dashboards also will have the functionality of subscriptions and rendering to all these different formats. This concludes our webinar about DataZen. If you would like some additional information, don't hesitate on contacting us. If you want to follow us, these are the different possibilities. This is also our last webinar for this year. Soon we will be announcing the calendar of webinars for 2016, so please keep an eye on our website. Suggestions are still welcome and can be sent to us. I would like to thank you and see you next year.